What does a young duke do when he is suddenly thrust into leadership and must gain the trust of a mysterious tribe, even as their enemies close in on them? Hello, and welcome to our channel. Today we will recap and review a sci-fi and epic movie called Dune. Let's check it out. It is the year 10,901. The world is a lot different from what it used to be. The bodily functions of men have become greatly enhanced, so much so that the minds of people can be used to control others. Man has also advanced so much in his scientific quest that it is now possible for people to travel from one planet to the other, pretty much like catching a flight to the next city. The entire universe, as much as has been conquered, is ruled by Emperor Shaddam Corrino IV. The planets that make up this universe are now nations, and they are ruled by the noble houses headed by dukes. The movie begins with the narration of Chani, a citizen of one of the many planets, Arrakis. Although Arrakis has no vegetation and is largely a desert, it has a precious mineral called spice. This precious mineral aids in enhancing the body as well as making travel between the planets possible. On account of this, a lot of the ruling houses seek rulership over the citizens of Arrakis. From Chani's account, it is obvious that they've been under the rulership of the cruel house of Harkonnen. For some inexplicable reasons, however, their rulers suddenly leave the planet. This is obviously to pave the way for another house to come in and continue from where the House of Harkonnen had stopped. On a different planet, Caladan, we are introduced to the House of Atreides, whose duke is Leto, with his queen, Lady Jessica, and their son Paul. Because of the advancement in the understanding of the human body, Paul and his mother have the ability to influence and control things with their mind. Paul also has dreams, which are more like visions that predict the future, while his mother is a member of Bene Gesserit, a secret sisterhood with political influence and enhanced physical abilities. One day, the political group that represents all the noble houses pays a visit to Leto's kingdom. They present a decree from Emperor Shaddam asking the House of Atreides to take over the planet Arrakis, since their former rulers have been ordered to leave. Although Leto is not very excited about this, he obliges and agrees to the Emperor's request. Lady Jessica, who is present in the meeting, sees a member of her sisterhood, Gaius Helen, in the company of the visiting political stakeholders. Helen stares at Paul with some interest as his mother studies her, unsure of what this stare could mean. Following the orders of the Emperor, Leto and his men prepare to move over to Arrakis. Among his soldiers is a loyal and competent soldier named Duncan, a great friend of Paul. Paul has been having visions of Duncan losing his life, and he tells him about his worries. However, Duncan assures him that everything would be just fine. Although Leto is a powerful ruler, he's a good man. He's a visionary leader who plans on treating the citizens of Arrakis, known as Freemen, with kindness. He's also a contented man and doesn't plan on exploiting the planet for his own selfish interests. These traits form the building block of Paul's disposition, even as the son of a powerful person. After training, Paul is told about the jealousy of the Harkonnen and their devious nature. His trainer tells him to be careful when they get to Arrakis. True to his words, the leaders of the Harkonnen house, Baron Harkonnen, and his brutal nephew, Rabban, are next seen in a conversation. Rabban is upset because of their removal from Arrakis, and he vents his anger. However, Baron Harkonnen is calm and explains to Rabban that the decision to take them out of Arrakis and to send in Leto was a ploy by the Emperor to get rid of Leto. This is because Leto's kingdom had been growing in numbers and their popularity was also fast growing. On the other hand, Paul has become quite the subject of interest. It turns out that there is a prophecy of some sort of liberator for the people of Arrakis. The secret sisterhood of Jessica had been waiting for the child who would fulfill this prophecy, and when Mother Gaius Helen saw him, she became sure that he was the promised one. To prove this, one day, Mother Gaius carries out a test on him, which he manages to pass. Shortly afterward, they arrive on the desert-like island and are received by the locals there. The locals also believe that Paul would set them free, but he is not necessarily interested in being anyone's messiah. One day, as Paul familiarizes himself with the culture of Arrakis in his chambers, a venomous worm-like creature attacks him, but he manages to save himself. After investigating, the security details find a Harkonnen soldier who is now lifeless. His mission was to take Paul's life as soon as he was able to. The plot to eliminate Leto and his men is well known by Helen, but she cannot act against it, as it is the order of the Emperor. She does, however, plead for the lives of Paul and his mother. Almost makes you wonder, why men are usually disposable. Shouldn't the life of Leto be worth begging for as well?
On Arrakis, Leto and his men find out that they've been left with faulty equipment, which would make mining this rare material even more difficult. Duncan meets up with Leto's family later on. He also brings Stilgar, the leader of the Freeman tribe, a fearless leader who doesn't hesitate to confront Leto for their planned exploitation of his people. However, after Leto assures him of friendly working conditions and positive changes under him, Stilgar leaves him with some form of assurance. Something about Paul catches his attention as he leaves. He believes that he has seen Paul before, with those blue eyes of the citizens of Arrakis. If they tell you that they have seen anything, you better believe it. As Leto and his men prepare to begin work on Arrakis, they decide to go for some field inspection. A Freeman scientist, Dr. Liet, inspects their suits before proceeding, and she is surprised to see that Paul, who is trying on the protective suit for the very first time, has worn it perfectly. This is a very special suit because of the way it helps to recycle and convert bodily fluids into drinking water.
If you ask yourself if you just heard me say drinking water, yeah, you did. You also heard bodily fluid, and that includes sweat and urine. A moment of silence, please, for all the times that we drank water where we didn't know where the source came from.
As they carry out the inspection, they discover that some giant sandworms are about to attack a rig of some sort with over a dozen people inside. With some quick thinking, Leto is able to intervene and save the people, but not before Paul inhales some of the precious compound being mined there. As soon as he inhales this, he has some visions about the future of Arrakis. On a different planet, a killer squad army is being prepared to invade Leto's planet and eliminate him. This army, referred to as the Sardaukar army, are brutal and trained assassins. Following Paul's inhalation of the precious compound in Arrakis, a doctor is brought in to examine him. The doctor, who has been in touch with Baron Harkonnen, gives the royal family some sedatives. However, Leto doesn't take them. That night, the dreadful army of Sardaukar attacks, eliminating scores of Leto's soldiers who are unprepared. They also capture Jessica and Paul. Leto is subdued by the doctor, who, although he seems to be working with the Baron, is really interested in taking down the evil Baron Harkonnen. He gives a weakened Leto a denture filled with poisonous gas and tells him how to release the gas within the tooth if it becomes necessary. On the plane, Jessica and Paul awaken to find themselves gagged. They mentally take control of the soldiers and eventually eliminate them. There's also a bag from the doctor containing a few essential things. Leto wakes up to find himself stripped and tied to a post in an awkward position. The doctor asks that the Baron lets Jessica and Paul go, but the Baron does not only disagree, but takes the doctor's life. He also tells Leto that his entire lineage would be wiped out. Leto decides to go down with as many people as possible. He chews on his poison-filled tooth, emitting the gas that's powerful enough to kill many of the Baron's people. As Jessica and Paul get to a safe place, they check the bag from the doctor and see Leto's ring and a note.
The responsibility of the royal house of Atreides now rests on Paul, and he becomes the new Duke. Having learned the principles of leadership from his father, Paul must do absolutely everything that his father was unable to do. How well would the young shoulders bear this sudden burden that has been thrust upon him?
Paul and Jessica are soon found by their loyal soldier, Duncan, and Liet, who take them to a safe place, as it is obvious that the Emperor and the House of Harkonnen would stop at nothing until the entire lineage is wiped out. The dreaded army of Sardaukar eventually tracks down the fleeing royal family and attacks the safe house where they're hiding. Duncan steps in to defend the family, even though Paul, who had seen him slain in battle in his visions, tries to stop him. In the course of fighting the invading army, Duncan loses his life. Liet leads the family to a chopper and helps them escape. Unfortunately, the helicopter can only take 2 people, so she decides to escape by a different route. She also tells them how to get to the Freeman tribe, as they would be willing to help them out. As she runs through the desert, she is spotted by members of the Sardaukar armies, and they pursue her. Eventually, they catch up with her, and just as they are about to put an end to her life, she thumps the sandy floor, and a giant sandworm emerges and devours all of them, including her. The persistent armies continue to pursue Paul and Jessica, but Paul flies the chopper into a sandstorm to distract them. This doesn't turn out so well, as their helicopter crashes into the desert sands. The enemy choppers, who now believe that the family is wholly eliminated, stop their pursuit. Back at the house of the Harkonnen, the Baron, who survived the poisoning from Leto's lethal tooth, is recovering from the injuries following the incident. His nephew brings him the news that the family of Leto is now eliminated. This excites him, so he asks that they return to mining the precious compound from Arrakis. He also asks that they eliminate all the members of the Freeman tribe. By some stroke of luck, Paul and his mother survive the crash. They also carefully make their way through the desert so as not to awaken the dangerous sandworms. After walking for a long time, they decide to rest a bit. Unfortunately, a giant sandworm must have picked up their scent and comes after them. They run as fast as they can, but the worm only pursues them more. It corners them and is about to devour them, but suddenly stops and turns away to go in a different direction after hearing a thumping sound. They discover that their savior is the leader of the Freeman tribe, Stilgar. However, the tribe members still want to take the lives of the mother and son who are dressed in special suits because they want the fluids in their bodies. Stilgar, however, warns his men against this. He also believes that Paul is the special one that they have all waited for. His ill-mannered men, however, want Paul to prove himself as the long-awaited one. Stilgar asks that they all go to a council meeting place where the fate of the foreigners would be visited. As they prepare to go, Chani suddenly appears. She is a lady that Paul had seen recurrently in his visions. Her appearance is proof that Paul had been correct about those visions. One of the Freeman men, Jarmus, insists on a duel with Paul. Although this is not something that Paul wants, he must honor this challenge. Unfortunately, these kinds of challenges must end in the death of one of the contenders. After a moment of fighting, Paul overcomes his contender, but doesn't kill him. Jarmus continues to attack him, and Paul is eventually forced to stab him, thus ending his life. After the fight, they all set out for the council, even as the movie comes to an end. It is obvious that a sequel is coming in the future.
This movie is over 150 minutes long. And like almost all dystopian movies, it tells a story with imaginative, futuristic, and implied undertones. It is really quite an intelligent movie, but you really gotta watch this with full attention to fully grasp what the story is trying to say. If you enjoy futuristic sci-fi movies as well as movies with sequels or trilogies, then this is a movie that you need to watch. Please subscribe to our channel to be notified when we upload. Also, don't forget to suggest movies that you want us to recap in the comments down below.